Welcome to the Social Mission Revolution.
Each week we explore some of the greatest undertold stories of businesses and everyday people who are making their ultimate impact on the world through social mission. This is Social Mission Revolution,
And this is your host, Andrea Putting.
Welcome to the Social Mission Revolution, and my guest today is Sam White, and she is the CEO, founder of Freedom Services Group in the UK and Stella Insurance in Australia. And got her here to talk all about what her social mission is, and we'll find out a bit of business along the way. So welcome, Sam.
Nice to see you, Andrea.
Thank you. So I don't like to mess with small talk, so I'd like to ask the question of what is, if there was one thing for you to fight for, what would it be?
This was a big question. When it came over, I was like, I've not been asked that before, and it is a big question. I did wrestle between a couple of things because there's quite a few things that I'm passionate about, and I think it has to be for business to have more humanity. Like my honest belief is that we're not going to change the world with governments. I've pretty much given up on politics, and the world currently is run by business. So for me, changing businesses will change the world, and the thing that lacks in business sometimes is definitely humanity. So that would be my thing.
Fantastic. I very much on the same page with you. I think the future of the world rests in business hands, which is why I'm so passionate about the Social Mission Revolution, because I think that's the power of it.
Yeah, businesses definitely have the power to change the world. Unfortunately, a lot of the time it's not necessarily in the direction of travel that we might want.
Yeah. Well, we'll try to encourage a bit of going in the direction that we like tonight while we record this podcast.
That sounds like a deal.
Yes. So, Sam, tell us a little bit about what it is that you do in the world.
So for some unbeknown reason, and it really is, when I sit back, it's unusual that I've ended up in the sphere that I've ended up in, but my businesses are all around the insurance space. And I did kind of fall into insurance at quite a young age. But as I've got older and I've kind of got more into the market, I actually realised that insurance can be a massive force for good. The very concept of insurance is that a group of individuals are happy to come together and put in on the basis that one of them might have a really unfortunate event that they can't cover by themselves, and therefore they need a group to be able to pick it up. So it's at a sort of conceptual level, insurance is a real force for good, and it often does bring a lot of good into the world. But for me, it's also a very male-dominated industry, and it has some sort of quite antiquated ways of looking at things. It doesn't always start from a customer perspective. The products are really designed by underwriters to suit a sort of underwriting risk. It also has a reputation for looking not to pay out on claims, as opposed to actually sort of covering their liabilities. Whether that's true or not isn't really always important, but that is the reputation that the industry has. So I'm quite passionate about changing the impression of insurance with people. I'd love us to kind of rebrand the industry as a whole and get people excited about that. But also in terms of the business that I have, I'm passionate about it being not just business. So, we try our best to support social causes. So over here in the UK, the staff have sort of time bank days. So they're able to get involved in charities that they're passionate about. And we try not to be too prescriptive on that, because again, I believe that people will put more into things that mean something to them. And in Australia, same thing. You know, the girls on the team there are very passionate about protecting domestic abuse victims, and so they've got involved in a couple of charities that support that cause. So it's, you know, for me, it's that balance with business of making a business that works as a business, but also works for the people that are in it.
Yeah, yeah. And I actually love the way that you've put what insurance is, because I'd never thought of it that way. This is the people putting in to support. It's like a co-op community feel that, you know, okay, it's might not be about me, but the people who have just lost so much from storms, well, what I've put in is going to help them. Oh, okay. I like that.
Yeah. It's, and we really probably should have done a better job of branding it that way, as opposed to the sort of grudge purchase that it is currently. You know, most people resent buying their insurance, you know.
Definitely do.
Well, we're going to try hard to make that a little bit better, hopefully.
Yes. But I'm really interested in the way that you do social mission in your business, in that giving of time to your employees to allow them to be involved. And how do you find that works for them?
I mean, so I think that a lot of people don't enjoy their jobs. They do their jobs simply to pay their bills, which for me is tragic, because I absolutely adore what I do. I love what I do. I can't remember the last time I didn't want to go to work and thought, oh, you know, I don't want to do it. It makes me sad to think of somebody that works for me feeling that way about a job in our organisation. But I'm also a realist that, you know, the job in itself isn't always going to be the thing that motivates you to go to work. So I think social networks at work, I think it's really important to create an environment where people interact with each other well, that they do become friends and do feel that going to work is a supportive environment. It's you know, and sometimes work can be a place that people can escape to if, you know, if home life isn't as good as it should be. And so in that regard, you want that sort of safe, inclusive environment. And I think if you then say, you know, if there's something that can give you a sense of purpose in life outside of work, whatever that may be, if we can support you feeling connected to that too, then I think you tick a lot of boxes. Even if the job that they're doing on a day-to-day basis isn't, you know, the thing that sets their soul alight, I know that they will do that job with more enthusiasm and more passion if they feel that the business that they're working for is connected to things that are bigger than just itself.
Yeah, and I think that's across the board. It's that involvement in something that's bigger than themselves, that it just makes such a difference to people's workday if they know that what they're doing on a day-to-day basis is going to support that bigger picture. And
For sure.
Yeah, it's so empowering for the individual, and I think for businesses it makes a big difference. So you find that people are more engaged in their everyday.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we've done a couple of things. So we did a sleep out for homelessness. So myself and probably 10, 15 members of the team slept outside and raised some money. But even just the process of that, and, you know, obviously it's, you know, nowhere near close to the experience that actual homeless people have, but just sort of having that recognition that, you know, it starts raining, you get wet, it's cold, it's, you know, it really does sort of put into context how horrendous that situation is. And the fact that we did it together meant that we'd got a shared experience together that gave that greater level of understanding. So when they're then supporting the charity further later on in the year, it just all kind of, all those pieces kind of clock in together. And I think, you know, in order for you to have the kind of life that you want, you need that depth of experience in your life. And I think a lot of people feel that they're just on a hamster wheel. You know, they're going to work, they're doing the job. The job doesn't mean really anything to them. They're going through the motions of life.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, businesses, schools, you know, they have a responsibility to try and create environments that enrich people rather than just facilitate them. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I've seen some incredible businesses do incredible things by locking into these sorts of causes.
Have you ever had a time when you've worked for somebody else that hasn't had that? Have you had the experience of that day-to-day grind?
Yeah, so I mean, very early on, I decided it was not for me. So the last time somebody else paid me, I was 24, maybe 23. My first two jobs out of university, one was working in a plastics company for a boss called Bob, who was frankly a bit of a misogynist. And me and Bob disagreed on a couple of things, and I decided to move on to a different career. And then the next job that I had was in a claims company. And they were very commercially motivated, shall we say. And I enjoyed the job, but I didn't enjoy the environment. And I got to the point where I just decided that if I continued down that road, I would be miserable and probably very unhealthy and not in a good space. So I decided I would leave, and I was actually going to go travelling, and then a few things happened that derailed me, and I ended up setting up my own company.
And what is it that made you decide that you wanted to include a social mission aspect to the everyday of your business?
So I set up my first company with my sister. My sister has very little interest from a business viewpoint, never really has done, but she's one of these people that does really believe in fighting for the underdog. So she was always, you know, we were handling claims, and she'd always get caught up in the claim that really we were going to make no money out of, but had the most sort of moral justification on it. And so I think that sort of naturally filtered in to some of the things that we were doing, that we'd both sort of get caught up in things that were slightly outside of work. But I think, you know, my mum died when I was quite young, and I think it does make you a bit more aware of the fragility of life and how short it really can be. And I think that will push you down the road of looking beyond just those relationships from a business viewpoint that are going to be commercially motivated. So one of my friends in the UK has a business called My Happy Minds. And actually there's a similar thing in Australia called Smiling Minds, and I've also spoken to the founder there. And it's a business that works with children predominantly to help them understand their emotional state and well-being. So it does things like meditation with them and mindfulness, but it's all about them sort of really connecting with themselves and understanding what's affecting them on a general basis. And I love that business so much. And it's not a charity, it is a business, but it's a purpose-driven business. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like it has the ability to genuinely change the world. If we can get kids to really understand what's going on for them from an emotional perspective, I think you can fix a lot of the problems, because I think most problems in the world happen because people don't really understand what's happening with them, and they lash out because they're hurt about something, and it has a knock-on effect. And so we decided to subsidise her programme in a number of local schools that couldn't afford to couldn't afford to pay for the programme themselves. So they were, their budget wouldn't necessarily support it. And I think stuff like that just happens organically if you're looking for it. If you like-minded people look for like-minded people, and then if there is an opportunity that you can do something good together, then it kind of takes on a bit of a world of its own.
Yeah, and I think that's very much part of it, is that being open, going, right, I want to do something, and allowing whatever that is to come forward when you're ready. You've got everything kind of your thinking in its place of what you can do to help people. And it just kind of...
I don't think it has to be that prescriptive. I think people, they like to put stuff in boxes. But, my sister ended up setting up a charity to help the Syrian refugees. A few years ago, there was an awful tragedy with immigrants trying to make it across the sea and washing up on beaches in and my sister's got 6 kids. And, she found that absolutely horrific when she was watching the news footage of it. And so she just decided she was gonna help. And she got these big containers delivered to her place in Cornwall, and then just went about getting them filled with all sorts of stuff, clothing, medicine. Cornwall's a big surfer town in the UK. And what was happening, people were going down to help these people as they were washing up, and they were ending up getting hypothermia because the sea was so cold. So they needed wetsuits. And so, she went out to the local community in Cornwall and said, any old wetsuits that you've got, we want to get them over to Greece. And she got a ton of them. And then one of the local wetsuit manufacturers said, here, we can give you more. And it's, it really is just that sort of snowball effect, I think, with people, where they start trying, they can see a problem that needs to be fixed or supported, and then they ask other people to help support it, and the next thing you know, you've got some good stuff happening.
Yeah, it's always being aware that there is somebody else that needs your help and that you can do it.
Yeah, and there's a ton of people that are in a worse situation than you are. I'm always really aware of that. I think a lot of us felt quite hard done to with COVID hitting, with the lockdown, and then you step back from it and just realise just how lucky we are in the West and the situation we are. I mean, you look what is happening in India at the moment. It's absolutely horrific. Yeah. But it's easy to get caught in that, and sometimes when you engage outside of yourself with these sorts of things, it just puts everything back into a much clearer sense of perspective.
Yes, and I think we lose track of what's going on in the world sometimes. We can easily get so focused, and especially in business, we can be so focused on that everyday business that whatever else is happening in the world is just, you don't know. You don't think about it.
It's that hamster wheel again, though, isn't it, Andrea?
Yeah, it is.
You can feel so busy, and also you can feel like all this stuff is so important, that deadline that you've got to hit, or that sales target that needs to come in. And for you in that moment, it feels like the most important thing in the world. But actually back to the sort of charity element with the staff, I think perspective is everything. And I actually think it's really healthy sometimes to step out of that hamster wheel and go, actually, you know what? It is not the end of the world if that deadline is missed, or that, that one thing that you're going for doesn't quite get there at that time. And being able to engage with these things outside of yourself, I think, allows you to get that perspective, which I think probably makes for better business anyway, because, panic does not deliver good results in anyone.
Yeah. It's so, there's just so many different positive aspects about social mission in your business. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, it just flows on from one thing to another, and people think that it's I think it's an expensive thing as far as your time and energy or financially, but I think that people feel so much better about themselves, and the fact that their work is helping somebody else in a bigger way, that helps to inspire them to work on that every day a little bit more, to be a little bit more productive. Happy people are productive people, let's face it.
For sure. I mean, I'm also a great believer in people taking time out to exercise and take care of themselves and meditate and do those sort of self-care things. And you can say the same thing for that, you know, taking up a sport or whatever may be expensive, carving out time in the day to keep yourself fit and healthy. You may go, I haven't got time for that, or, you know, the work's too busy for people to do that. But I know categorically that somebody who is in a good space physically will be far more productive at work. I'd rather get 5 hours of your time at work where you are, you know, you're in a great headspace, you're feeling emotionally fulfilled, physically fulfilled, and that's what you're piling into your work, rather than you're stressed, you're tired, you have no sense of purpose, and you're just going through the motions and ticking boxes, because that won't deliver any kind of upside from a business viewpoint. You know, you're just going to repeat whatever mistakes you've made in the past.
Yeah, so you'd be more productive in 5 hours than you are in 8 hours.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if your head's in the right place, you're physically, emotionally connected with what you're doing.
Yeah.
Very powerful. So what kind of, if another business is thinking, she's mad,
Which
they don't agree with what we're saying, what would you say to them? What kind of advice would you give?
I would say that, you know, all the things that we've just been chatting about, I would say that having a social mission and being a profitable, successful business are not mutually exclusive. People, you know, businesses that have a sense of purpose will always outperform businesses that are just there to make money. So don't, even if you're not, you know, you're not a charity-minded person. And I think sometimes it's a bit like spirituality and religion with charity and business. Some people don't buy into the concept of charity. And I understand the challenges around that, you know, that there are a lot of inefficient charities, that there are charities that don't necessarily make best use of their resources. And also charities sometimes struggle to be self-sustaining because, you know, what they have behind them it requires constantly topping up. But that's not what I'm talking about when I'm saying a business needs to look at these sort of social causes. You know, if you were to say charity is religion and having a social mission is spirituality, what I'm saying is if you weave in that sense of purpose and you connect your people to something outside of themselves, you'll have a more productive business. And, you know, and even now commercially, there's even the investors are starting to realize that this stuff's important. So you've got investors that will only invest in businesses if they have some sort of sense of social mission behind them. So you may even be excluding yourself from an entire group of potential investors if you don't buy into it. So it doesn't have to be something that you do despite wanting to have a good business. It can be because you want to have a successful business.
And there's also the evidence growing that people will prefer to engage with companies who do have a social mission. So from clients or customers or whatever it is that you're dealing with, people will choose that over a business that doesn't.
Absolutely. And, you know, we're finding that now. I think in the past, brands could say whatever they wanted, but be something completely different. And a lot of that's getting called out now. You know, there's sports brands that presented this sort of empowered image, but maybe had sweatshops in countries that didn't treat the staffs as well as they should have done. Apple's come under fire recently for similar things. And I think, we are moving into an age of there's so much information, and consumers do want to know that the businesses that they're connected to share the same values as them, whatever they may be. So it is starting to become much more prevalent, and something that I think boards and larger corporations really do need to kind of be cognizant of.
Yes. So it's time for everyone to wake up and join the social mission revolution.
Absolutely.
So if somebody wants to get in touch with you and find out more about what you do, or wants to invest in the community by purchasing some insurance to make sure that their neighbours have a good opportunity to survive when they have something happen, how can they get in touch with you and your business?
Well, at the moment, we're just offering motor insurance in Australia, but we're bound to move into the other areas at some point. But lots of good stuff there as well. So Stella Insurance, www.stellainsurance.com.au. And if you want to get in touch with me, LinkedIn's probably the best place. So Sam White, Freedom Services Group, you'll find me talking lots of nonsense on LinkedIn and posting random pictures of my children picking up dog poop and behaving as badly as possible.
Yes. And you also have a podcast, so people might want to listen to your podcast as well.
Well, that would be absolutely lovely. That's Human Business. So that's on all the usual Spotify, Apple, etc. Lots of interesting people talking about how they make their businesses more human.
So we're very, very much in alignment with our podcast, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to thank you for dropping by and having a conversation with me, Sam. I really appreciate your time and making this time available for us to connect across the world.
Brilliant. Thanks for having me on, Andrea.
Okay, thank you. And that's all we have for today for the Social Mission Revolution. And we'll be back next time with another Social Mission Revolutionist.
This has been the Social Mission Revolution with Andrea Putting. Join me again next week when we'll speak to another social mission revolutionist who will inspire you on your journey to making your ultimate impact on the world.